Welcome everyone to the April Walk Massachusetts Network meeting. I'm going to turn it over to our speakers from the Tufts UEP program. Go ahead, guys.
Well, hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity. We're very happy to be here. My name is Marion.
I'm Olivia.
I'm Dustin.
I'm Victoria.
I'm Jordan.
I'm Ken.
And we are grad students from Tufts School of Urban and Environmental Policy and Planning. So over the past couple of months, we've been working closely with Brendan and Yolando in a very iterative process to find out how we could make the vast walk audit data that Walk Massachusetts have compiled to more useful to a more useful process. So over the period, we arrived at three main tasks that we've been, if you will, assigned to accomplish for Walk Massachusetts. The first task was to identify which areas that were under audited and which areas needed walk audits to be prioritized. The second task we were assigned was to identify what success looks like for Walk Massachusetts and how do we make their walk audit processes more effective. And then third, we also were set on a course to identify how do we develop a visually appealing format or database or dashboard that will enable all their stakeholders access this data in a more visually appealing interface. So we set out and we have been able to put together something very beautiful. I want to show you. Ken?
So basically, we do understand that WalkMass is operating on a time constraint and they have to take the opportunities and advantage on whenever walk audits are possible. So basically, one of my analysis right now, I mean, we're doing a lot of analysis, but one of them that's really interesting is that we want to find out that which town needs the audit the most. So basically, because there are towns that has a lot of crashes, but not many audits, and there are a lot of towns that have a lot of funding to go towards audits. So it might be a little crashes with a lot of audits, and we may also get towns with about equal amount of audits versus crashes. So basically, let's turn to our data exhibit. So basically, this analysis is based on crashes versus audits. So we took the number of audits per the number of crashes per capita divided by over a number of audits per capita, and this is based on our findings. So these are the 10 municipalities where audits are needed the most. So basically, the darker the color is, the more audits are needed for those cities, because it just means that these places has been having a lot of crashes, but not enough audits yet.
Yeah, so kind of our second deliverable or outcome that we're trying to get from this process is looking at the effectiveness of audits and kind of looking at the outcomes that you get from the walk audit process. But we really wanted to kind of look into community stories and the people that were involved in these audits. So our main goal was to provide feedback and recommendations to Walk Massachusetts about the walk audits to help create a more effective process. So the way we did this, we first started by researching municipalities and cities and the specific audits that they had. So we only chose 5 municipalities from all of the 114 audits that were given to us to kind of go through all of their audit reports and look through also their cities and municipalities and their designs and kind of projects that were going to be happening to kind of see if we could connect the audits to any changes or outcomes that were happening. So we chose Springfield, Somerville, Watertown, Worcester, and Boston to kind of look into, since those had the most audits, were pretty close proximity to us, and Brendan and Yolanda also had suggestions to look for those places as well. So from there, we saw a bunch of people that were in multiple audits or were involved heavily in the audit process or had good relationships with Walk Massachusetts. So that we went into the interview process where we talked to 15 people over the course of, I'd say, like 2-3 weeks. And then from those interviews, we made sure to ask questions related to how the audit started. So if that was from a grant or kind of a culminating event, how that kind of happened, the relationship to Walk Massachusetts and how that started, the outcomes from the walk audit and the process of the walk audit. So we were kind of looking at outcomes such as like relationships that happened, educational moments, as well as like infrastructure change that happened after the audit process. And then we also wanted to look at the follow-up process and any recommendations people gave for Walk Massachusetts to kind of come back and see if any changes had happened after the audit. So then from these interviews, we went into qualitative coding, which seems kind of technical, but it's actually where we're just looking at these transcripts of the interviews, going through them from the themes we decided from our questions that we had, highlighting those themes in there, and then kind of conceptualizing and culminating those like kind of quotes that we got to kind of understand what everybody was saying overall. So then that led into our summary of findings, which we're currently working on, to kind of conceptualize, like I said, everything that everybody had said to kind of like inform our recommendations for Walk Massachusetts.
Yeah, so as Olivia mentioned, right now we're working through creating this like overall summary of findings and recommendations. But just like starting the process, we have some preliminary ones that kind of highlight from these codes and different themes that we looked at during the interviews. The interviewees' like opinions on the most important parts or outcomes, successes, or rooms for improvement from this overall audit process. We got a lot of really helpful, valuable comments from all our conversations. So now we're just like working on distilling all of that information. And so in this relatively early stage of analyzing the findings, we've identified 3 main frequently like talked about outcomes and rooms for recommendation. The first has to do with community engagement. Almost every single person that we spoke to talked about the importance of community engagement in conducting a successful audit, as well as the importance of relationship building, both between the municipality and Walk Massachusetts, but also between different participants on the audits and the different departments within a community. We also learned from this community engagement piece, like the importance of researching a town and their specific needs before going into it. Another really valuable finding we have realized through this process has been in regards to the outcomes of the audits. So going into this process, I at least was expecting like infrastructure to be the most important outcome that would happen, or infrastructure changes to be the most important outcome that would happen after an audit. But a lot of our conversations revealed that although that is an outcome, there are a lot of more valuable, less easy to measure outcomes that are equally important, such as these like aha moments, which is discussed in the middle column. So just increased education among community members, among like city council members, department heads about the issues related to pedestrians in different communities, and just like increased awareness about these topics that really helped increase community cohesion and increase general awareness. And then lastly, we really realized through these conversations the need and want from these participants for a follow-up process. The follow-up was identified as like a very valuable way to actually measure if the recommendations that Walk Massachusetts makes at the end of these audits were taken into or put into effect. And also outside of the recommendations, outside of these like structural or policy changes, they are a way to just maintain a relationship, increase trust between groups, and increase this activism that and advocacy that Walk Massachusetts works to develop through this audit process. So now that we are starting to develop these findings a little bit more, we'll be able to give like a list of recommendations moving forward.
Okay, so the final thing that we worked on as a key deliverable for Walk Massachusetts was to kind of take a look at their data and think about new ways to present it. What we have already in particular is this like database of walk audits. And this is really rich, structured data about like a decade of audits, including ones that Walk Massachusetts did, but also some from partner organizations. And it's broken up with like city, town, year, short-term recommendations, long-term recommendations, but then also tags. Someone's gone through and identified tags. So this is really good data, and it's publicly available, and it can like inspire and help people that want to conduct their own audits. But it's just not very easy to browse. It's not very easy to like make connections. So yeah, one of our key goals here was to try to unlock that decade of walk audit data, make it more usable to policymakers, community advocates, the WalkMA like donors or board members. And we thought what that would involve is making something that is very visual, like centered around a map, highly interactive and shareable, and also something where you can kind of like discover connections between audits or discover audits that might be relevant to you, not just based on location, but based on things like themes. So this is kind of weird what we have right now. I'll show you a little preview of this dashboard. Yeah, you can find it for now at walkma.netlify.app, but if you want to try it, but it'll get deployed for real shortly. And yeah, basically over on the left, you have these little cards representing all the audits that have happened, and then we see them placed on the map. It's a choropleth map where the darker colors represent places with more audits. And if you click on a place, then we filter down to just see the audits for that place. If you click on one of these cards, you get a little pop-up that has that data from the spreadsheet, like the tags, the summary, short-term and long-term recommendations, facilitator, year, and also a link to that original PDF report. So you can go refer back to that. And you can kind of flip through these. Then we have some tools for filtering, like not just down by city, but also by tags. So yeah, if you're only interested in audits that have to do with like racial equity, we can see which ones those are, or MBTA, or safe routes to school. So that's highlighting, and you can also click on these bar charts to turn tags on as well. You can also filter by organizations that are involved in the audit, and then also by year. So right now, like if you kind of scroll through this, you can see the audits appear over time. So these are all the audits through 2022, through 2023, but I can also switch that to in if you want to see exactly audits that happened in 2018, in 2017. And one final thing we've been working on here is this idea of WalkMA kind of becoming a clearinghouse for audits and being the place where you want to have your audits published. If anybody does an audit, and part of that entails creating like a shareable page. So here's kind of a preliminary view of that. Like now this audit, it's got a unique link, and you can share that with people. And you just, it's again a high level summary of the PDF, but it's kind of web native and easy to share with other people. Yeah, so this is some of the stuff we've worked on as far as data presentation.
Right. So just to wrap up here and to kind of recap what we've sort of been showing you over the last few minutes as we took a look at, for our project, which communities have a need for audits but might be underserved currently, which we're answering with our geospatial analysis. We are taking a look at how can the process be improved of the actual walk audit, and how can we ensure that we get desirable outcomes, which we're looking at answering with our qualitative research. And then we're also looking to see how we can tell the story of the walkouts that have been done so far using maps and using data visualizations, which we've done with the dashboard that Dustin just showed us. Our next steps to kind of wrap up the project, as we're kind of coming to the end of the semester here, is to complete our analyses. We have some qualitative coding to finish up, and we also want to include some additional variables in the spatial analysis, right? We talked about crashes, but we also want to try to include things like maybe heat data, maybe air quality. We'll see what we can get to. And then, once we do that, that'll allow us to solidify recommendations, right? To compile a list of recommendations to hand to Walk Massachusetts, as so that they can, improve on their processes. And yeah, we also have to hand off the dashboard, right? That dashboard right now doesn't live on WalkMassachusetts' site, but it will soon. And we also need to give them, documentation so they're able to use it and maintain it after the project is done. And we also have some final reports and presentations to deliver just for the course, right? So by the end of April, we'll be all kind of wrapped up. Thank you, Nina. So yeah, that should be it. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you guys so much. We'll open it up to questions. It looks like Betsy already has her hand up, and we'll go right to Betsy. And I know Betsy's going to be excited that you did stuff in Springfield. So,
Oh, well, I know, yes. Well, and this is just unbelievable. I mean, for a while, we did have a map that would take you to the various audits, but nowhere near as tremendous as this. My question is, I don't know if you came across any of the audits, MassDOT, and this is sort of a question for Pete Sutton and Rana from the Pioneer Valley, who are both involved. The planning commissions, together with MassDOT, are involved with what are called road safety audits, which are, in a sense, are a walk audit, but not usually involving a whole lot of the community. Some of them involve some of the community. Should we seek to figure out how to get some of these road safety audits reports actually added into this database?
So I can answer, because I think we had a conversation with this with the team, is that MassDOT already has like a layer related to their road safety audits. I put the link in the chat for all of their road safety audits. So like there is already a separate database where they do that. Does it make sense to maybe have a way to turn on a layer so you can see, oh, our walk audits happening in similar places to the road safety audits? Like, how do they interact with each other? Yeah,
Maybe we should tell people what a road safety audit is, actually.
I mean, the short version is a walk audit on steroids. It's really like a half-day process led by MassDOT or a consultant team from MassDOT to kind of really do a deep dive look at all the crashes that have happened over a certain period of time. I did put a link in the chat so people can see the road
And maybe
safety
that's
audit.
all we need to do, is in the same location as we talk about the audits, is to help refer people
Yeah.
to those additional audits. They're often done when MassDOT or a community is considering a major infrastructure project in a given area. They're sort of a precursor to that project.
They can be triggered by a giant development project that might generate a certain amount of more trips, or if it's it can also be a regional planning agency is working through their top crash locations, and they will do road safety audits working down that list of top crash locations over a certain time period as well. So
do we know if the planning commission's audits are added into this MassDOT list?
The MassDOT list, that is road safety audits that happen across Massachusetts.
Okay, even ones just done by as part of the work plans of the.
If they are a road safety audit, yes,
okay.
I believe that they're all included in there, because the MassDOT district offices are typically involved in all of those.
I can get Rana to check on that.
You can spot check, but yeah, yes. That's
okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. I have a comment, not a question, for the team. I think Yolanda and I have expressed this before, but like the way that you guys are presenting the data, like, and having it be an interactive map is very exciting. And I especially love the use and maintain guidelines that you're going to be providing for this. So it's not just a moment in time, that like this will be a continually used and updated resource for folks. So I definitely appreciate that. So there is a question or a recommendation in the chat from Alexis. Alexis, do you want to speak to that?
Certainly, yeah. I just think that noise is a good proxy for comfort. We have a big problem with cycling of like expert cyclists don't always have the same experience level as like young or newer cyclists. And so it's hard to measure comfort level. And I think no, the sound of traffic behind you is a good proxy and can be measured. Because like I will move out of the way if I hear trucks or cars behind me. And I don't consider myself an expert cyclist.
Uh, do you have a source where they could seek out some of that information? Like, are there good existing data sets on that, or is that something where, we should be encouraging folks to think about it as part of a walk audit to like start monitoring?
I know you can download apps on your phone to measure decibels. I do not know of any data sets. And I have been looking.
Okay, great. No, that's good. And I think the neat thing about this is I think if we went back and looked through some of the existing walk audits, like we might realize that there are some walk audits that people talked about it's really noisy at this location and stuff like that. So like I think there is the ability to in the future, like if there is more of a focus on noise and noise pollution and stuff like that, I think you could go back and like code a couple of the existing ones and be like, oh yeah, like there are more of these that have a common theme than maybe thought. So Nina, do you want to share what you mean?
I saw an article recently about how in the Netherlands, they're going to be monitoring the noise levels in streets. So, they're getting rid of like fat bikes, which are getting very popular there with those really wide tires, and they're also really fast and dangerous. So all this new stuff is creating new problems. And they're starting to outlaw them in different places, like in the big park in Amsterdam, Vondel Park. You can't have the fat bikes anymore. And they're going to be cracking down on this noise thing and issuing tickets. And so there's definitely a correlation, right? We kind of know noise, and we used to always find also garbage correlated with how safe streets were. It was sort of like where people wanted to go out. And then if there weren't people out there, the cars would be speeding, because they're sort of abandoned. So these other layers, which I think the Copenhagen wheel, I don't know if that you can still buy that, but it was developed over at MIT, that big red thing that would replace your front bike wheel. You had the option of turning on or off all these different things about like measuring pollution or traffic or noise or like all this other kind of stuff. So anyone that opted in could be a sensor for this stuff.
Interesting.
But I just want to the map. I mean, I am so excited about this. I don't know, a year and a half ago, I just wanted a map that showed sort of like where we did work, and that it turned into this super useful tool that's going to become, I hope, like the main resource for this kind of stuff, or one place where it all gets collected. I'm just so excited about this. I think you guys did an amazing job.
Right. And that was one thing that the team was trying to parse out there, where they were like, what different groups are involved. So like you could then, because Merrimack Valley Planning Commission like did a couple walk audits and they added theirs. So like it's shown as they are the person who did the walk audit. So like you could be like, okay, I want to see every walk audit that doesn't involve Walk Massachusetts, which ones are in here, and you could check out some of those things. So it's great. Like we definitely want to make sure that um, that this is not just our work, but like it is, it's being useful to people in
Go-to
communities.
resource.
Yeah. Betsy, you got your hand up.
Sorry to dominate, but I wanted to ask a question following up on the Judy's question about Safe Routes to School. Safe Routes to School does a lot of additional arrival and dismissal audits. and walk the school audits. I mean, I know with Safe Routes to School, we've done those in Springfield. Does Safe Routes to School have a database again of those audits that, or is there, how are that could somehow be linked with this?
Great question,
So maybe-
Betsy. Whoops, I sent you a froze. Okay, great question, Betsy. Appreciate that. And this is probably the main differentiation between a Walk Massachusetts audit and a Safe Routes to School audit. We are not a stay in your lane program, so we equally work with municipalities as well as community groups. But with that being said, any report that we generate, whether it be a parent travel survey, a rival dismissal report, a walk audit, is owned by the schools. So we have to ask permission to share those because these are minors in nature. So we have to ask the schools. So on our website, MassDOT's all about being transparent. On the front page, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, there's actually, I think it's under the evaluation section, but we have a dashboard. So we update this quarterly and you can see the specific activity we've done with that school over time and over 20 years, like Walk Massachusetts, there's a lot going on here. And so that's pretty much our repository for this. But in making, say, a map, which is beautiful that you folks have done at Tufts, and just being a central library, if you would, it's just beyond what we can do because of working with public charter school students.
Right.
But it does sound we could do the same thing we do with, at least on sort of the introduction to our whole thing, the same way we could direct people to also check out MassDOT's road safety audits, we could direct people to this listing. And so again, if you're looking in a specific town and want to find sort of all the different things that have been done, that's how we could, Walk Massachusetts could be of a resource there.
And Judy, I was just talking with someone who's on the Melrose Bike Ped Committee, and they were sharing they actually just took part in a Safe Routes to School arrival dismissal.
We've done many in Melrose, and so yes.
Or Judy and I were both involved with a group of students at the Renaissance School last week.
Great.
In Springfield,
you were with a group that went in one direction. I was with the group that went in the other direction.
Well, there are four groups, so we had to divide and conquer here. So, but I love the sentiment. So many times we're all working in parallel paths, and it's just wonderful when we all come together and try to work together and just share our resources so everyone understands. There's many different people trying to push that ball uphill. So
for sure.
Thank you.
Sure. That's great. Thanks, Judy. Other questions? Other things in the chat? I know another thing I'm excited about is the follow-up recommendations as well, because I think that's something where we have a lot of before photos. I would love to make sure that we can help as part of this process, coming up with follow-up strategy and recommendations so that as things get completed, we can tell those success stories of beyond just people making connections and, understanding that there's more people in their community or their neighborhood that are also concerned about safe streets and, want to create a better built environment, but also that when things get done, we can then get photos of those and then tell those stories and share that inspiration to help people out across the state.
Could that be added as an additional category on the little bit of the I'll call it the summary report, to indicate whether it's even a yes, no, that there's been some known follow-up, and maybe it's just titled known follow-up, and then a yes, no, or you could get, or it could get even, and if
or
we know, and if we
updates.
get
Yeah,
a
I don't.
yes, we could then try to even add. I mean, I'm thinking of, as you know, the one in Springfield with the Adams Park. Yes,
This has been
they
a
do.
debate, Betsy. So I'd love to hear what people think about like what is a useful thing. Like if, say, you live in a community and you find out that a walk audit has been done, and you look at it and you're like, oh, that's actually been built already. Like what is a useful? Is it you send an email to something on the website? Is it a form that you can share an update? Like what do people have a preference or? Alexis, you just came off mute. What do you think?
Yeah, I was gonna say something very similar. I think a form, I was just gonna ask how to add content because like I'm looking at Worcester and I think there's one that you did. Yeah, all of WalkMass did in 23, and I know there's been upgrades. It's like Mill Street, and there's been upgrades since then, and they added it in a bike lane, became a huge topic.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so there's already progress on stuff. And I know last summer, Alex, Nate, and I from CMRPC did two walk audits in Worcester, and they haven't been added. So I was wondering what's the form process for adding things. And I think to Betsy's point, last summer, Vision Zero from PVPC, we did like 4 Vision Zero audits, which are slightly separate, but kind of exactly the same that could be added. And I don't see them on here. So more content.
Yeah. No, that's exciting. And another thing is, Dustin referenced that this will live on our website. Right now, it's on the kind of the demo site, and we are thinking it will be a subdomain, but we're leaning towards like audits.walkmass.org or something like that, where it can be more inclusive of, hey, we're doing a bike audit, or we're doing an accessibility audit, or a public space audit, or something like that. And it can be more of a clearinghouse. But yeah, we're also trying to balance how much is it being reviewed, because we don't want it just being put live right away, right? Like because there are spammers on the internet. Like we, had thousands of responses to a Google form recently that was all junk. And so like we're glad that is not public facing. Great. Okay. So we also, want to make sure that there is like a human review before it is something that goes live. So we're trying to balance those pieces as well. So
Yeah, can I jump in for 1 second and
sure. Yeah.
say, yeah, I mean, I'm really happy this is where the discussion went because this is kind of the journey that we've been on. Is yeah, like, and one thing we talked about is some of these gray spots that are missing. It says, hey, you can do an audit here, learn how, and then this takes you. Okay, right now it takes you to this Walk Academy page, but really the secret is here under walk audits. It's if you've already conducted a walk audit, you can use this form, and that's where you can submit new ones. And then that does get manually reviewed. Then it ends up in that Google spreadsheet database, which is the like underlying database for this chart. But then the other interesting thing is like, this is sort of what initially was asked of us, was to just put the audits on a map. But then it's like maps have implications, and it's like this answers the question, where have audits been? But then it like raises new questions. And so one of those is like, okay, these are places where audits haven't been. Do they need an audit? And that's what kind of led to that research question, like which places actually need an audit that don't have them. And then the other thing is like exactly like has come up. It doesn't tell you anything about like the quality of the audit or like the successfulness. So that's what kind of sparked that other research project, which is like, what could it look like to capture some of that data? What does success mean? How can we capture that? And and then in the future, maybe you can make other kinds of graphics, analyses, maps that capture that. Because right now we can't even put it on a map because we don't have it, But so that's kind of what led to that other project. Like, what do you want to capture to make those kind of maps about? Did success happen? Was it successful? Did something change? Exactly. like how do we even collect that types of data? That's what was our other project.
Right. And like it is, you know, is a theme like that follow-up happened or something. I don't know what the exact language is, but like so you could, you know, sort all audits by looking at ones that have follow-up information submitted or um yeah, because that could be interesting to someone who is like, well,
Yeah.
what comes of these? You know, like so yeah, it's
But yeah, the answer to your question is like it is possible to submit a new audit with that form, but to add that follow-up data like you want to add, that's not possible yet. So that's kind of what our recommendations are gonna highlight. It's like maybe a method to do that in the future. Yeah. Oops.
great. Um, any other questions from our room here?
Um, I'm just really impressed with the work that
Yeah.
you have done, and I really appreciate that. It's been really much a pleasure working with you all because, yeah, you all have helped us move things significantly during your time here. And
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree. And this has been a dry run for their final presentation as well. So I think they did an excellent job. So we were happy to invite them to present in April because it was a good dry run. Because when is the final presentation? Is it about 2 weeks from now, right? 28th?
28th.
Yeah.
Great.
We give you an A.
Oh, you can, we're done semester over.
Yeah, that's recorded, so we can send this recording along. So, great. Are there other questions or comments for the team? Well, great. This was excellent. Oh, and Alexis has awarded you a gold medal as well. So that's great. Well, yeah, I would just love to thank the team. It's been excellent working with you all. Have really appreciated the work that you all have put in and the thoughtfulness that you have taken on this. And yeah, I'm excited to look at the follow-up recommendations and yeah, I think I got to stress this. They did 15 interviews with people who have taken part in previous walk audits across 5 different communities. So I think that is some excellent work as well. So it's a little bit of qualitative, a little bit of quantitative. It's great. So, and Yolanda just put in the chat the walk audit data submission form as well. And yeah, a number of the team will also be coming to the CIC tonight for the Walk Massachusetts annual celebration. Alexis, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I've dreamed of Mass Bike also doing something similar, but at the end of the day, it's really hard to write anything down when you have your hands on the handlebars. And so walk audits actually just make more sense, and I don't want to be responsible for another database. So we were thinking about throwing around the term mobility audits, like how do you get around with a stroller or a grocery shopping cart or a kick scooter. So just with the same thing, but with wheels. And again, I don't believe in siloing. So maybe just a way we could work together in the future.
Yeah, part of that is like why we were thinking of that like subdomain URL being audits.walkmass.org. So it can people through subtlety there that people might be able to say like, oh yeah, like I should upload my bike audit or I should upload my mobility audit or I think she's not on the call anymore, but Karen Valentine Goins at the Prevention Research Center and Walk Bike Worcester has also been talking more about, public space audits and park audits and different ways that people can use the same process of, that we teach people through walk audits to, examine the built environment and examine how people move around in space and use that same process. So.
Oh, and that was very much the orientation of the audits, the self audits that we did during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
That whole project that we did with the Mass Inc.
Yep.
were walk audits, but they were really much more assessment of space audits rather than walk audits.
Well, and an interesting thing about
And I don't think a lot of those audits never got uploaded.
It's possible. So I know one thing that the individual piece is there's a group in Malden, the Malden Safe Streets organization, and they have been encouraging folks to do as many, like when you're out walking, like fill out this Google form and, rate pieces of the street. And then they're on the back end, they're compiling a bunch of these audits, and after I met with them, they're thinking that, you know what, we're now going to narrow it down to a couple locations where we want to do group audits to then, get the piece of the walk audits that is important of the making connections with others and learning from others' experiences and others' lived experience and how that impacts how you feel and how you experience the street as well. So they're kind of doing the best of both worlds there. Okay, great. Well, I hope to see a number of you this evening. And if not, we will see you soon. So thanks everyone for being here, and congrats again to the Tufts UEP team that's been helping out with this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.